Good morning, Professor Venkatesh.
Morning, morning,
Nice to
morning,
meet
sir.
you. Thank you very much for providing me the space.
It's my pleasure, sir. It's my pleasure, sir. First of all, I would like to sincere thanks and gratitude for accepting our invitation and spending your precious time with us towards the development of our students' careers, sir. Very kind of you, sir.
My pleasure.
Yes, sir. Can I start the welcome, sir? Can I start the welcome address? On
Please
that,
proceed, sir.
yeah, thank you. அனைவருக்கும் காலை வணக்கம். I put forth my sincere thanks to our management for accepting wholeheartedly to conduct this international virtual learning series. Today, we are very proud to have an eminent personality, well known academician, and honorable resource person, Professor Dr. A. Shyam Sundar, sir, Assistant Dean of Scientific Research and Quality Management Officer in the Department of Pharmacy, Pharmacology, and Toxicology, University of Nizwa, Sultanate of Oman, to grace this occasion for his kind consent to share his knowledge, experience, and expertise to deliver the lecture on the tissue of conflicts of interest in medical research. In the international virtual learning series, it is a great pleasure for all of us that he could find time to be with us in spite of his busy schedule. Most welcome, Dr. Shyam sir, Sundar sir.
My pleasure.
I take this opportunity to convey my sincere thanks to you and your esteemed university for accepting our request despite of your busy schedule and for being a valuable part of this series. Most welcome you, sir. Next, last but not the least, dear my enthusiastic students, kindly utilize this great opportunity to explore your knowledge. This is the first and foremost needed for your career. All the very best for all the students. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Welcome, sir.
All right. Good morning, all. Is my presentation visible on your screen?
Yes, sir.
Can I start?
Please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. May I kindly request everyone to mute their mic so that my voice will be clear and audible to you all. Respected Dr. Sridharan, Chairman, Kalasalingam Group of Educational Institution. Dear Dr. Sashyanand, Vice President, Kalasalingam Group of Institutions. Knowledgeable participants of this webinar. Good morning, all. Right at the outset, I thank Professor N. Venkatesan, Principal, Arulmigu Kalasalingam College of Pharmacy, for providing me a space to present on an important topic, conflict of interest. I wish to extend my appreciation to all who have enrolled in this webinar, despite today being a weekend. In the next 50 minutes or so, we are going to discuss about an important topic under ethics, that is conflict of interest. Right at the beginning, I wish to inform you all that all opinions expressed in this presentation are my personal opinions. These opinions have no association with either University of Nizwa, Sultanate of Oman, or Arulmigu Kalasalingam Group of Educational Institutions, Tamil Nadu, India. I have never worked in any of the pharma companies mentioned in this presentation, and I declare I do not have any conflict of interest. Right? With that, we straight away get into the presentation. To reach the highest, begin from the lowest. Lowest in the sense, the interesting ones. We all know these two gentlemen, right? We all know these two legends of Indian cricket. This gentleman, former Indian cricket captain and current BCCI president, Sourav Ganguly. And this gentleman, we all know, the best batsman in the planet at the moment, Virat Kohli. Okay, interestingly, these two gentlemen caught in the issue of conflict of interest. Of course, just before taking charge of Board of Cricket of Control in India, Dada was accused of having two roles. The first role, he was being Chief of Cricket Association of Bengal, and also he was the advisor of Delhi Capitals, which is a private entity. So these two roles he maintained, that would have conflicting interest. However, Dada was cleared of that charge. So what's the issue of Virat? Virat was also accused of having two roles. Number one, we all know the current Indian captain. Okay, captain of Test, One Day and T20 teams is the current Indian captain. And interestingly, he is the director of this particular venture as well. Cornerstone Venture Partners LLP. Okay, this is a talent research organization, talent search organization that maintains the portfolio of current Indian players like KL Rahul, Umesh Yadav, Kuldeep Yadav, Ravindra Jadeja. So all the players' profile are maintained by this company. So obviously, this is also a conflicting role. He is the captain of Indian team. So he is owning a company that takes care of KL Rahul, Umesh Yadav, Kuldeep Yadav, Ravindra Jadeja. There is a chance that the Ashwin's exclusion may be due to Ravindra Jadeja's management by his company. I'm not saying this, there is a chance. But later on, Virat's manager confirmed that there won't be any conflict of interest in that. So this is just the overview of the conflict of interest. But first thing first, this is my presentation outline. I will start with an overview of conflict of interest. I will proceed deliberating how to identify conflict of interest. What are the potential consequences of conflict of interest, and how conflict of interest influence the financial interest in the medical research. And I will wind up by highlighting a quadrangular approach to how to manage the conflict of interest and the current scenario of conflict of interest. That is, do we really care about conflict of interest? In the early 1980s, a neoliberal economy emerged across the globe. This neoliberal economy stressed on important things. Number one, deregulation. Number two, privatization. And number three, market-driven policy making. These three are the important stressors of that neoliberal economy: deregulation, privatization, and market-driven policy making. An important result of this neoliberal economy is that it forged strong commercial interest between the pharmaceutical industries and the research community. So, in the overview, just look into what is this conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is a situation. Right at this point, I will tell you, conflict of interest is not a crime, but it is a good administrative procedure. By getting rid of the conflict of interest, you can ensure fairness, integrity, and ethical impartness into your research and all your operations. So, conflict of interest is a circumstance in which there is a risk of the professional judgment or actions which we make. Those professional judgment may be unjustifiably influenced by secondary interest. We all have primary interest. We are all healthcare professional or healthcare aspirants. So what all the primary interest of us. We want to promote science. We want to protect the integrity of science. We want to ensure the quality of medical education. We want ultimately the welfare of the patients. These are all the primary interests. We cannot compromise on these primary interests. So what are the secondary interests? We are all human beings. We do have a personal life as well. We have a family to feed. We have so many responsibilities as well. We do have the secondary interests like financial gain. We quest for professional advancement. We friends, or colleagues. I think a mic is on, right? We do have primary interests as well as secondary interests. So we do have primary interest as well as secondary interest. When our primary interests are damaged, or potentially, if they have the potentially, if they are damaged by these secondary interests, then a conflict of interest situation arises. This primary interest, we cannot compromise on that. If any of our secondary interests like financial gain, quest for professional advancement like promotion from assistant professor to associate professor to professor, from professor to provost, provost to vice chancellor, and so on. The quest of professional advancement may be there. Favoritism for the friends, family, students, or colleagues. If our secondary interests, in fact, if the secondary interest, if they affect the primary interest, then there will be conflict of interest. So throughout this particular presentation, okay, I will show you small videos, totally 3 videos, 2 videos just of 2 minutes, and the last one is for 4 minutes. Okay, so until now, what we have discussed, we will summarize in this conflict of interest video. I request the moderator whether the video is having the sound at the end of this particular presentation.
Okay, sir.
Every day, ordinary citizens like you and I choose to do extraordinary things in the service of others by becoming public sector workers, dedicated heroes. Heroes who hope to make our world run. By taking the money entrusted to them from the public purse and spending it wisely and with great care. Doing things like looking after our parks, providing care for those in need of it, staffing our many services, providing our vital infrastructure, looking after our children, driving our public transport, working in our state and local governments, to uphold our values such as impartiality, accountability, integrity, leadership, respect, and responsiveness, as well as respecting and protecting our human rights. But at the end of their working days, when these citizens return to their private lives, these people have private interests, and sometimes these private interests cross over with their public roles. Sometimes these private interests clash with their public duties, and that's when they may find that they have a conflict of interest.
Was the video audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Right. Continuing with our conflict of interest. Conflict situations are generally classified into 4 different categories. So these are all the 4 general categories of conflict situations or we may encounter in your day-to-day professional life. The first one, accepting gifts from individuals or with vested interest. Number 2, conflicting for the benefit of self or family members. Number 3, using or disclosing confidential information. And number 4, keeping roles at that conflict. These are all the 4 general categories of conflict situation. We will discuss one by one. The first one is accepting gifts from individuals or with vested interest. Imagine a situation in which the head of the Department of Computer Sciences department, he receives a free ultra high definition television from a computer seller who is looking for a contract with the college. So often these type of traps come with a quote like, just try it and see if you like it. No obligations. Okay, so just accepting gifts from individuals or with vested interest. The seller wants to sell computers to your college, and you are in the decision-making board that purchased the computer. So is it ethical to receive a high-definition television from that computer science department? From the computer seller, I mean, from the computer seller. So this is the first one, accepting gifts from individuals with vested interest. The second one, conflicting for the benefit of self or family members. The hospital or the college purchasing officer, he purchases things from a company owned by his own son, right? So the hospital's purchasing officer directs the procurement decision to favor a company owned by his son. So this is conflicting. The third situation, using or disclosing confidential information. Like, say for example, the pharmacogenetics and gene testing is growing day by day, and the gene banks are common. The genetic profiling of individuals are becoming more and more common. So imagine a situation in which a director of a gene testing laboratory, he gives all the genetic information of the individuals, comes to his clinic, to the insurance company for money or other benefits. See, the insurance companies, they want to give insurance policies only to the healthy people, right? If they can get, okay, illegally, they can get information from these gene banks, which is absolutely illegal. If a director of a gene testing laboratory, if he provides genetic information to the insurance company or a potential employer, because imagine I'm a director of a police academy, I want to employ a good, a very high quality individuals with well-built physical acumen. So I can get the information whether the genetic profile is good, they won't get diabetes immediately after 2 years joining into the department. So this type of using or disclosing confidential information to the third party, that also is a conflict situation. The fourth one, keeping roles that are conflict. The chief executive officer, for example, a chief executive officer of an oil corporation is serving as a trustee for a company that works for alternate energy sources like energy from the sunlight, energy from coals and all. So the CEO of an oil corporation, his duty is just to take care, to ensure that oil corporations are working fine. Whereas the alternate energy sources, they look for a substitute to oil. So a single person cannot fulfill these two roles in a honest way. So this is the fourth type, which is keeping the roles that are having conflict. Right. Up to this point, we have seen what is conflict of interest. When our secondary interests are influencing, or potentially they have the potential to influence our primary interest, the conflict of interest situation arises. So in this slide, what we are going to discuss is we are going to identify the conflict of interest. How to identify conflict of interest. So identifying conflict of interest situation is challenging, but not impossible. One of the easiest way is to look into the situation in the facets of ethics, integrity, and value. You all heard of this: ethics, integrity, and values. Integrity we all know, but we often confuse between ethics and values. Ethics and values people use interchangeably, but strictly speaking, they are different. Ethics is a system of moral principles. Ethics is a system of moral principles. Whereas what are values? Values are the stimuli to our own thinking. Values are stimuli to our own thinking, right? I enter my classroom. I'm a teacher. Okay. I enter the classroom. Okay. Nobody there in the classroom. And I find a wallet. I find a money purse. I find a wallet on my table in the classroom. Nobody is looking at that, at me. Right? Whether I take that wallet, whether I misuse that wallet or not, is driven by the thought process I'm having, and that thought process, the stimuli for that thought process is called as the values. So the bottom line is, one of the easiest way to look into the situation in the facets of ethics, integrity, and value, you need to look into these three dimensions. First, in an ethical perspective, you have to answer these two questions. Do my actions feel right? Am I doing something which is really right? Do they reflect accepted standards of right and wrong? If I tell to third party, if I tell to some of my friends, relatives, will they say whether it is right or wrong? You have to answer these two questions from an ethical perspective. In integrity point of view, you have to answer two more questions. Am I being honest about all aspects of the situation? Am I not justifying myself and indulging in the conflict of interest issue? Do the right people know what is going on? Yes, I'm doing this. Whether my dean knows that, whether my the administrators of the college, the trustee board members, they know that. Do the right people know what is exactly going on in the task which I'm involving? That is from the integrity point of view. The last one is regarding the values. Are my actions in alignment with, okay, I'm doing an action. Okay, I find myself who is having very good values. My family has taught me excellent values. Is this action or my actions is in alignment with my personal values and the values of the institution I represent? I represent University of Nizwa. Do my action is in alignment with the institution I represent? So in all these aspects, you have the answer. All these questions you can say yes, no, right? Sometimes you may hear, okay, you're neither sure whether you can say yes or no. When you have doubt, then there is a conflict of interest. When you say no to any of this, then there is a conflict of interest issue. And even if you are suspecting yes, whether it is yes or no in any of this, then there is a conflict of interest. Only you can proceed with the task you are on if all the answers for all these questions, is yes, right? So this is how you can easily identify the conflict of interest situations. Right. Every presentation regarding conflict of interest in medical research will involve this medicine, Vioxx. Vioxx is the trade name of rofecoxib tablet. This Vioxx, we call that as classic example for conflict of interest. So Vioxx is a MNC blockbuster, a Merck. Okay, it's a Merck is the multinational company involved. It's a MNC blockbuster. Okay, it bagged a lot of billion in this particular marketing of Vioxx. What's the issue with this? Number one, incomplete reporting of the data. During the clinical trial, you should just report both the beneficial effect and especially the adverse drug reaction should be presented in an amicable manner. But here what happened? There was incomplete reporting of data. And the interpretation of the data published in the journals, the interpretation of the data which is published in the journal is done by the multinational company indirectly. And there was a data oversight. They did not probe individual data well. They failed to disclose the adverse drug reaction. And above all, the US FDA, okay, the regulatory mechanism was failed. Why all these issues? In the year 2000, New England Journal of Medicine, which is a very, very respected and popular journal, the physicians across the world, they take this, the recommendations present in this New England Journal of Medicine, they take that as if it is from a holy book of them. So it is a very, very respected journal. In the year 2000, New England Journal of Medicine, it published a study called as VIGOR, VIGOR. That stands for Vioxx Gastrointestinal Outcomes Research. I repeat, VIGOR is the acronym of Vioxx Gastrointestinal Outcome Research. Right? So that paper discussed the benefit of this particular drug Vioxx. In June 2001, two sincere doctors, they wrote to New England Journal of Medicine that more adverse drug reaction existed with Vioxx than it is presented in the journal. In September 2004, Merck withdrew the Vioxx from the market. In December 2005, 5 years after publishing the Vioxx study, the New England Journal of Medicine, it agreed with the publication and expressed its concern. In the meantime, look at the conflict of interest. The New England Journal of Medicine sold almost 900,000 reprints. 900,000 reprints of this VIGOR study to the Merck. Right? You can refer to an article written by Mark Wilson. Okay, he has written a comprehensive article on the Vioxx class. So, what is the ultimate result of this Vioxx tragedy? 20 million patients used this particular drug. 20 million patients used this drug within that 5 years gap. Right? 140,000 patients got either stroke or heart attack. 50,000 individuals died and $6 billion was paid as compensation. These are all very, very critical numbers when it comes to the Vioxx tragedy. Right. To summarize, the multinational Merck, it conducted the trials, they stored and analyzed the data internally. They have not published in the public database. Paid academic researchers, okay, those who are association with colleges and universities, they were the part of the investigating teams. The paid academic researchers, they are the members of the safety monitoring boards of the study. And the multinational company, Merck, it influenced the script of VIGOR, and the journals published the study with a little review, with little introspection. The journal, which is of very, very high quality, as that of New England Journal of Medicine, with little introspection, it published that. Things regarding this ethics went on very well for New England Journal of Medicine until 2010. In 2010, until 2000, until 2000. In 2000, there was a change in the editorial leadership of New England Journal of Medicine. A great scholar, Jeffrey Drayson, a very nice researcher and a great scholar, he took over the office. At that time, the compromise started. He is a great scholar, but the issue is he loved money as much as he loved the science. So, just because of these issues, there were issues like the journal published with little introspection. The medical community accepts the findings without expressing much concern. The medical community accepts this finding without much concern. And it is very, very sorry to note that nearly 107 million prescriptions for rofecoxib oxide, the same Vioxx, 107 million prescriptions for rofecoxib oxide were dispensed in just 4 years, that is 2000 to 2005. Right. Things did not stop there for New England Journal of Medicine. Things did not stop for New England Journal of Medicine. I think there is another mic on now. Things did not stop there for New England Journal of Medicine. In 2015, recently in 2015, the New England Journal of Medicine published a series of articles with 3 parts. Okay, part 1, part 2, part 3, all from New England Journal of Medicine, teasing the conflict of interest issue. The author of these 3 articles, Lisa Rosenbaum, she questioned the people who are stressing more on conflict of interest. She asked 2 important questions through these 3 articles. Are we now too suspicious about conflict of interest? Are we now too paranoid about it? And whether we are succumbing to moral outrage rather than reason. So in other words, she supported people who overrule this conflict of interest sort of thing. The reply immediately came from the great people like Robert Steinbrook, okay, and 2 former editors of New England Journal of Medicine. They hit back through another big journal, British Medical Journal. They mentioned justifying conflict of interest in medical journals like New England Journal of Medicine is a very bad idea. They went on to say, it is an indication, it is a clear pointer that the conflict of interest policy is further being weakened. And it is a wake-up call for all medical journals and the profession. And they said, it's time to move forward and not back forward. Okay, if there is any publications like the 3 they have mentioned, that will drive the ethics agenda backward. And that is what these 2 gentlemen, Robert Steinberg and 2 former editors of the same New England Journal of Medicine, they came out in support of avoiding conflict of interest. So we talk about peer review. Most of us as a teacher, we do the peer review process. And more importantly, regarding this peer review, we need to rule out the conflict of interest as well. So another 2 minutes video regarding how to avoid conflict of issue while doing a peer review. The Cambridge University has released a beautiful video on it, a simple 2-minute video.
Ethical peer review. What is a conflict of interest? When you're reviewing a manuscript or a book proposal, it's important to consider any conflicts of interest, also known as competing interests, you might have. Even the most ethical scholars and reviewers ensure they're transparent about potential conflicts, so that together we can protect the integrity of the peer review system. So, what is a conflict of interest? It's anything that could affect or could be perceived to affect your ability to review the manuscript or book proposal solely on the basis of academic merit. This could be a financial, professional, contractual, or personal relationship or situation. Here are some examples of common conflicts of interest. You might have a personal or professional relationship with one of the authors of the content. For example, you might have co-authored something in the past with them, or you might work in the same department as them. You might even be related to them. You might find that a manuscript is very similar to, and perhaps competes with, a manuscript that you yourself are currently preparing. You might have a direct or indirect financial interest in the results of the review. For example, you might have been asked to review research which supports the company that you work for, or which supports a product that you're developing. What should you do about a conflict of interest? A conflict might become apparent at any point in the review process. Maybe when you're invited to review, or later, once you've accepted the review and received the manuscript or book proposal. At whichever point you realize a potential conflict exists, you should declare it immediately. Even if you feel able to review the manuscript or book proposal with integrity, you should declare anything that could be perceived to be a conflict of interest to the editor inviting you to review. That way, the editor can take the appropriate steps to make sure that the review process is carried out as fairly as possible. For more information on peer review, visit.
So the bottom line of the 2 minutes video which we have seen is you should peer review. You should review the papers or the books based exclusively on the academic merit. You should review only on the basis of academic merit. Okay, your personal relationship, professional relationship, financial relationship, the contractual obligations should not hamper the review process. If any of the author is known to you, you should inform the editor and kindly inform him, and you should just keep yourself away from reviewing that particular article or the book chapter. At the end, it all boils down to a single important question. What is the primary obligation of healthcare researcher? According to the World Medical Association Declaration of Helsinki, protecting the rights and protecting the well-being of the research subjects, that is, the humans, remains the most important duty of any healthcare researcher. So, there are 4 serious consequences if we are not abiding by the primary obligations of the healthcare researcher. There are 4 different consequences. Number 1, there may be loss of objectivity that results in biased outcome. The objectivity will be lost. When the objectivity will be lost, the results will be biased. The outcomes will be biased. And they reorder the research priorities. Okay, they reorder the research priority. Instead of doing the research which is needed for the community, the researchers will start doing research to get money, to get association with the pharmaceutical companies. So it will degrade the science. This is very important consequence of conflict of interest. So it degrades the science. Science is in fact a fascinating exploration. It will degrade the fascinating exploration into collegial enterprise. And it transfers times and interest to commercial ventures instead of having the research with community interests. So what are the influence of financial interest in medical research? The financial interests, they may have negative impact on the protection of the rights and well-being of the research subject. This is a serious issue. If there is a financial interest, It will have a negative impact. It won't protect the rights and well-being of the research subjects as it should be. For example, the researchers may be tempted to disrespect the inclusion criteria. They won't be serious about the inclusion criteria. The researchers may delay withdrawing subjects from the study. They may delay withdraw the subjects. The researchers may tempted to pressure their patients to sign a consent form. You all know consent form. The signing in the consent form is voluntary, and the participants can withdraw at any point of time, even without telling any reasons. But all these will be compromised. The protection of the rights and well-being of the research subject will be compromised if there is financial conflict of interest. So this financial interest, they threaten the integrity of the science. They threaten the integrity of the research itself. It may influence the design, the way research is conducted, collection and interpretation and publication of research data. Evidence has proved, the published literature have shown that there is significant link between the source of funding and research outcome. Often the researchers are funded by pharmaceutical companies. Those researchers, they have the positive outcome. They always project the drugs under investigation in a better light. And the published literatures have also shown that there was underreporting of adverse drug reaction. If the study is funded by the company, and if the drug is prepared by that company, there is a underreporting of adverse drug events were discovered. And these academic authors, people who work in universities, they lend their names. I categorically use the word lend. They lend their names to give credibility to the publication, as in the case of Vioxx. Financial interest, they mislead the research agenda. They mislead the research agenda. This is the last part, but this is very important. Growing commercial incentives in research, they affect what research is being undertaken. So when the company is ready to sponsor, all the researchers, most of them, they tend to look at the commercial incentives they are getting by undertaking the research sponsored by the university, sponsored by the pharmaceutical company. The pharmaceutical sponsors are more likely to offer payments for clinical trials rather than sponsoring the research studies involving neglected disease and orphan drugs. Okay, there is no one, almost no pharmaceutical company is sponsoring for this neglected disease or orphan drugs. They want to sponsor their molecule which has the potential to be so like anti-obese medication, lipid lowering drugs, all that. They won't care about the neglected disease, orphan drugs. Of late, they are not even caring about the antibiotics because of the problem of resistance. Okay, any antibiotic put into the market within 6 months to 1 year, or some of the doctors with irrational prescribing. Okay, so the drug become ineffective. So these are the research agenda. By this, the research agenda has been just misled. We have seen what is conflict of interest, how to identify conflict of interest, the consequences of conflict of interest we have seen. Now, instead of talking about problems, what is the solution? Okay, how we can deal with conflict of interest. This is a quadrangular approach given by Wakhan et al. Okay, in their OpenMed journal. Okay, they have proposed this particular approach, quadrangular approach to deal with conflict of interest. Okay, disclosure, review, monitor, and prohibit. Right. The first approach, the four-way approach. In the four-way approach, the first approach is disclosure. This is a basic requirement, but this is not a fulfilling one. This is very basic. You have to disclose. The researcher should disclose the financial interest, research ethics board, research subjects. They should disclose their association in publication and in all presentations of their findings. And regarding review, the second approach is review. The review should be done by the research ethics body, and ideally they can have an independent conflict of interest committee at the university level. They analyze budgets and discuss conflict of interest issues. The review of research contracts also should be reviewed by this research ethics board. And the third approach is to monitor the informed consent. Okay, you have to the research ethics board, and there should be an federal mechanism. There should be an embedded mechanism. Embedded mechanism should be there, which monitor the informed consent process be conducted in an independent person. The informed consent process, okay, the consent process should be taken by the independent person who is not involved in the study. Independent data monitoring committee should be established, and they should monitor, number one, during the research process, they should monitor the safety of the research subject. They should monitor how the results are analyzed and how the results are published, how the results are disseminated. So that monitoring is the third step. And the fourth one is regarding prohibition. If anybody is having significant financial interest to carry out the research, we should prohibit those researches. This is very tough, but this is the way by which we cannot just say conflict of interest. We have to identify disclosure. It's not just a disclosure. You have to do something to avoid the conflict of interest that you can do by prohibiting. These exceptions should be justified and based on solid grounds. Okay, so you have to prohibit the finder's fees, incentives to keep patients in the clinical trials. So these type of informations should be prohibited. Okay, if the finder's fees, incentives to keep patients in clinical trial, all that should be prohibited. Are we really serious about conflict of interest? Right? So World Association of Medical Editors. So WAME is the acronym of World Association of Medical Editors, and COPE, Committee on Publication Ethics. They publish a lot of excellent journals with great impact factor. These WAME and COPE, the World Association of Medical Editors and Committee on Publication Ethics, they have launched initiatives to establish international standards for the disclosure of conflict of interest. Okay, they have provided how to disclose this conflict of interest. And COPE under its umbrella, it is having 7,000 member journals. And the COPE instructs, it requires all these 7,000 member journals to comply with its code. This is very, very good. Are we really serious about COPE? No, in my humble opinion, just for this reason. The COPE, it neither polices nor enforces the code. There is no monitoring mechanism now. Okay, so it requires all the 7,000 member journals, but it neither polices nor enforces the code. This is a very important point, And I just want to conclude with the concluding remarks from British Journal of General Practice. They clearly mention we need to understand that a business culture is not a medical culture, because the fundamental objectives are different. The fundamentals of medical culture and the business culture is totally different. So how come a pharmaceutical company can just make all this medical, we can allow them to overrule this medical culture? It's very important that we need to understand that a business culture is not a medical culture, and the fundamental objectives are very different. Okay, those who are interested, this is my article regarding conflict of interest, in which Paxil will batch in Avandia, a perfect cocktail of medico-marketing malpractice, which I have published in the International Journal of Pharmacy. And this criticized GSK in journal, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, Abbott Laboratories in conferences, just regarding their involvement or perceived threats in the involvement in the conflict of interest issues. I have one more video to show, but I will share that video. I will give the link. Okay, so I think the time is fine. These are all the resources. Okay, all the informations I have got from these resources, and the opinions, as I said, the opinions are my personal opinions, and it has nothing to do with University of Nizwa or AKCP, right? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to interact with you all during this wonderful weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Professor Dr. Shyam Sundar, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yes, sir. Really, we had a wonderful and informative presentation, sir. Such a wonderful and informative presentation. Any questions?
So, good morning, sir. Sir, I have a question.
Please proceed.
Sir, the conflict of interest is moral oriented or it's a regulated one?
It's driven by moral, by of late. It has become a regulatory requirement. It becomes a regulatory requirement. Say, for example, in the research board that governs research activity, the research council in Oman, okay, where I live, okay, it mandated every research to make sure they have to declare that. Now it is regulatory as well.
Okay, sir. Sir,
sir, good morning, sir.
Please go ahead. Very good morning.
Sir, yeah, this is Arjun Kumar, sir, from AKCP.
Yeah, please proceed, sir.
Actually, in your slide, in that particular slide, prohibit of COI, you got mentioned
Yes.
AAMC. So, what is that mean by AAMC, sir? I didn't get that point. So, can you explain one more time, sir? What is mean by AAMC in prohibit of COI? Prohibit of COI in that slide, sir, you got mentioned.
American Association of Medical Editors, AAME.
Oh, okay, sir. And one more thing, sir.
Yes, sir.
Actually, when we join any company, we have signed something, sir. So we have to follow the morals of the particular company, any company. Even though when we are join FR&D, we have to sign the moral. We have to obey the moral which is framed by the company.
True, very true, sir.
So in case if there is any conflict in their moral, as an employee, what should we do, sir? So we can't do anything now, sir. This is my basic question.
The employee, what you need to do is, first thing. Did you finish your question, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, right. I will answer. First and foremost thing is a disclosure. Suppose, imagine we will come out a little bit from a pharmaceutical company. Imagine that you are working for a Pepsi. Okay, you work for a Pepsi, and you know inside out what they are doing in the R&D or what they are doing in the marketing. So immediately, it's not ideal as an individual. As an individual, you cannot immediately join to Coca-Cola. We call to another issue regarding this conflict of interest addresses. How to address this conflict of interest is there is something called a school of period. They call that a school of period. Say, for example, if you work in Pepsi, take at least 3 to 5 years before you go into the Coca-Cola. Gary Krishnan was the cricket coach of India, right? That won the World Cup 2011. But immediately after that, he was given an opportunity to just lead the South African cricket team, which he has refused because of conflict of interest. He just underwent a cooling period of 2 to 3 years to consider that particular position. The first thing is when you are in the R&D, and if you know the company which you are coming from and a new company which you are aspiring for, if you are there, just to try to give this cooling off period. But if you have great obligations to join, if you have financial commitment and all, you go there right at the interview table, right in front of the human resources, you disclose that. As I mentioned, conflict of interest is not a crime. Okay, you just disclose that, and do not just share the secrets. Okay, or whatever skills you have learned in the previous company, you can utilize that. But whatever secrecy you have gained from the previous company, you should not tell to your new employer. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Sir.
Yes, please.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. So recently,
Good morning.
2 or 3 years back, there is a case in the Supreme Court judged by a popular prosecutor, Nariman, and
Yes.
his son was the Supreme Court judge at the time, and he given that uh, order for that particular case, and it was owned by the father Nariman. But like this, if we
Yes.
know each other doing the review, that how it will affect the how it will cause the conflict in the sir.
That this question is very, very political, and I understand the case which you are representing, which is very, very interesting. But here, there is something in legal proceedings. There is something called as amicus curiae. Okay, amicus curiae. So here you need to understand the word amicus curiae. So and then you have to interpret that. With all these justifications, it shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be the case. The father as well as the son. Okay, they just, there is a procedure in legal issues called as recusal. The judges normally, if any of their relatives, if they have conflict of interest, they recuse from the case. They have the right to stay away from that case. But in the case which your good wife is in referring, there was no issues. There was no such recursion. But you have to understand that was a case. You have to see that in the light of amicus curiae as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I am Raghunathi Pandian from AKCP.
Please
Thank you
proceed,
thank you for raising valid ethical point in the medical, especially in the medical research, sir. So my question is actually starting from education to the healthcare sector, everything is being privatized throughout the world. So privatization means they want to get profit, and that profit also, it is not limited. There is no limit for profit. It is not about 1 rupee, 10 rupee, or 100 crore, 1000 crore. As much as possible, they want to mint profit. And it looks like many are concentrating on showing the so-called positive results, even though some results negative means they want to hide it. Even in this corona period also, there are many news are coming, even from the starting of January also, medicines invented, vaccination will coming, this country has medicine, that country has medicine, like that things are coming, but without proper proof and all, but we are also spreading. Is it ethical, sir? Unless socially sponsored, if the sponsorship is not from the government, if society is not sponsored, if individual companies are sponsoring, how can we eradicate all these things, sir, in this situation? What should be the remedy for this?
This is very, very important question. Okay, I wish all of us be safe and very quickly we come out with vaccine. With the little knowledge we are having, what I can say is the vaccines are not possible until March of 2021. Okay, until March of 2021, there is no chance of vaccine. Okay, so we are getting so many information, right? So the best thing possible is better not watch them. Better not watch them, because if you look into the channels, okay, I'm in Oman. I live in Oman. Tamil Nadu is so close to my heart. Okay, I stopped watching television for the last 1 month because it's all about the number of cases, number of death. It just put me in a negative span of time. Already as a teacher, I'm just having classroom sickness. In the sense, I'm not able to see my students I have a passion for teaching live lectures, but I'm not seeing them. Already I'm depressed. Along with that, if you are continually bombarding them, okay, so a 6-year-old boy going into the quarantine, 10-year-old girl has expired. People of irrespective of all ages are having that. And corona is living 8 hours in the air, 1 hour in the air. It is contagious. We are getting a lot of issues. Restrict your channelize from where you get this information. Rely on WHO data and CDC's data. Okay, and all the top medical journals, you can just, whenever time comes, you can just review once in a week. It's very unethical that the social media, the social media and the news channels are, what they are doing is, number one, they focus too much on the number of cases and number of deaths. Number two, what they are doing is they give false hope, like of late, the Russians. Okay, the Russians have just done the phase 1. They have just done the phase 1. The phase 2 and phase 3, they can be combined in emergency situation like that. And they need at least, even they are communists, they can just straight away, they can do anything. It won't be possible before 6 months. Anything will come a positive for 6 months. So you are right. There are so many conflicting information, but better way is stay away from unauthentic information. Just to focus on these two websites, CDC and WHO, and just focus on that. And regarding our previous question, there is an interesting fact I just want to regarding Fali Nariman and his son Rohinton Nariman. The correct fact is that Fali Nariman, I repeat, Fali Nariman has never appeared before his son, Justice Rohinton Nariman, in any case in the Supreme Court. But as I mentioned, you have to look into the amicus curiae. Okay, so amicus curiae, and then you have to look into that. Okay, according to the data we are having in our research database, Fali Nariman has never appeared before son Rohinton Nariman in cases per se.
So there is a question in the chat box by Professor Sultanate. Many journals are asking the authors itself to submit the name of the reviewers. Then definitely there will be a chances of a conflict of interest. What is your point on this?
Yes. Okay, so when it is again up to it, it's again boils down to the author, the corresponding author. Okay, certain journals ask the corresponding authors to give the names of potential reviewers. Not all those journals, they select the reviewers from that. They ask for reviewers' name to put that in their data bank. Okay, I run a journal, I collect all this information and I put them. Not necessarily I will use that for the same paper, right? Some journals, yes, they use the same reviewer, okay, because the reviewer pool is so shrinking, and the researchers, if you send it for the reviewer takes undue time. So in that case, it's again boils down to the individual author to select the reviewer, number one, who is very honest. Okay, he should provide a name of a subject expert, and also above all, who can give honest opinion, who is not saying just yes and all that. Yes, as an author, for some journals, as an author, I am obligated, I'm just mandated to provide the names of that. At the end of the day, I am selecting their names. So at that time, the values which we possess and ethics, you apply that, and you can provide a name of a subject expert who is very honest enough. Okay, then there is no issue.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, as far as the vaccine information is concerned, in India, I am not talking of media, sir. Even ICMR itself fixed the deadline that from August 16th we will start vaccination program. Like that, drugs will come. Like that, Even the highest body in India, medical body in India itself is announcing like that. How the scientific community to react to that?
Scientific community should oppose that. They should oppose that. The announcement of having August 15 as a deadline for Covaxin is a big absurd. The scientific, it is purely political. That is one of the things we pretty know that the guy who is always, who is just want to project himself, who just concentrate more on posing to the cameras. Okay, so it's because of those people we are just having this August 15 deadlines. The scientific community, it's by ICMR, but you have to acknowledge that a lot of scientific professionals, a lot of researchers, they oppose that and they have withdrawn that date. August 1, Covaxin is not coming.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Is there any more questions, sir?
So if any other questions, we will revert you back, sir.
Okay. I have to tell this within short span, within short duration of time. Okay, I really appreciate Professor Venkatesan for arranging this particular webinar very meticulously. Yesterday, I had a trial version with our friend Anburaj, and thank you very much, Anbu, for being a moderator as well. I once again thank the principal, Professor Venkatesan, the management of BKCP. It's a pleasure talking with you all. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's have a good collaboration in future also, sir.
Looking forward to that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.